Hey everybody, good morning. Welcome to the Enhance Your World show. I'm your host, Chris Olva. Lorcan may be joining us earlier. We're starting a new time. We're trying to find a time that works for Larkin and I's busy schedules, so we can be more consistent for you and for ourselves. And hence the inspiration behind today's show about the frequencies, consistencies, and our manifested realities. Now, the cool thing about the time that we're in is that there's enough scientific evidence that proves spirituality beyond the dogmas, beyond the conformities, beyond the practices, and reveals within it a universal truth. So, part of our journeys, right, is living a spiritual way on a spiritual path, which means, spirit, mind, body, that holistic approach, because the mind filters through what we're aware of, which then reflects it into our circumstances, so we can use our experiences of life to help grow our conscious awareness about who we truly are as far as love. And fortunately, because that's the whole truth, when we come from love, the source energy that's creative and always expansive, which is a level of acceptance and understanding, and compassionate, which allows us to move forward, right, in our relationships with ourselves, with others. And until we learn to truly surrender our pain story of what happened in our past, how we got here, how we were right, how we were wrong, how we were treated unfairly or unjustly, or any of those things, we will tend to still hold on to those emotions, whether they're buried or not. And so the frequency of our actual being is how we live in the moment of now, right? So how we're thinking, how we're feeling, how we're behaving, ultimately creates what we know as our physical reality, because we can relate to it mentally, emotionally, and even physically based on our mind's ability to go backwards and reflect what was, to justify where we are right now. And there's all these different practices to help get us into higher frequencies of thought and feeling, but we actually have to just sit in that. We have to be able to cultivate that. The more we surrender our egoic story of victimization or martyrdom or hero, or all the things, all the different ways to identify ourselves, and understand that what we feel in this now moment is the absolute truth that is always changing, that is pliable. Because what we've known in the past is only relative in our now by how we relate to it with all the different realms of our beingness. Energy and motion is our emotions. And so where a lot of us, and even myself, get stuck sometimes in the journey, is we start to intellectualize. We think about things more than we just feel that resistance in our body, and then move that energy, whether it's through breath work, whether it's through physical exercise, whether it's through going into nature or meditating or doing different things to help that energy move. And when we understand on a deeper level, when we're trying to live our highest frequency of spirit, um, um, of our soul self, which is our whole self already, it's already the light and the shadow. And we're trying to find balance between these seeming dual things, whether we want to label them masculine, feminine, right and wrong, light and shadow. Ultimately, it's information. That's the light of awareness, right? Is information, and what we're unconscious of is our shadow. So the more we investigate within ourselves why we've reacted in the past the way we have, the more we learn to accept ourselves fully for the things that we've gone through, and that informs our now being, how to intend to move forward in a more intentional and mindful way, which is a very interesting thing. 20 years ago, I didn't want to work for the man, right? I didn't want to be paying taxes and doing all that, because I carried a lot of trauma from my childhood, from where my dad didn't feel like he didn't have control of his life. And I used that as a reason of why I was being abused the way that I was. Now I understand on a deeper level through our conversations, through still being in communication and relating to one another on a physical level as well, that he was doing the best that he could with what he had. And the part that I had a hard time accepting of him was that he just accepted it. But that was part of what I needed to experience to be able to see beyond that condition of being so identified in the way that I provided service. And the more I realize that the way I truly serve is who I am, and all the different ways that I get to participate in life, both in the natural world and our man-made society, makes up my experience of my life story, both of the formless and the form. And part of my deepening of patience came through understanding that even though I didn't understand why I was doing what I was doing, I was doing it with intentionality, because I wanted to see, I wanted to have an experience. I wanted to truly understand what it was to live a spiritual life, and give without the fear of reciprocation in the physical reality. Because there's been a lot of times in my life where I gave everything that I had, and those that I was in relationship were giving all that they had, but for whatever reason it didn't work out the way that we intended, and that left fears and insecurities and worth issues and all those kind of things that stem from that. And the more I've worked within myself and the relationships that I have with other people, the deeper I understand that what we're able to explain, what we're able to communicate, is what we're aware of. What shows our true character is how we show up. And even if we're not showing up in the best way, because we're frustrated, we're angry, we're sad, we're grieving, we're in a lower vibrational state, that level of self-acceptance and self-love, not only for yourself, for still showing up into life and participating, but also connecting with those entities, those people, those things, those circumstances, whatever it is, that is love. Because it's so easy to get callous. It's so easy to project. It's so easy to blame. It's so easy to just give up on something that is providing resistance for you and saying, well, this way over here looks way easier. The grass isn't greener where it might be greener over there because of the circumstances of what was going on over there. But if you're not cultivating and you're not nourishing and you're not watering where you're actually at, that means yourself, the way you think, the way you feel, the way you habitually behave as far as your habits are concerned. These frequencies and consistencies are what makes up our manifested reality. And as far as abundance is concerned, it's always enough for now. And we'll grow as we grow more into our strength and in our wisdom, the more capability we have to be able to act and behave in a responsible way. One of the things that I had to heal about myself, and the things that I realized of my past was, I lived by, the Eagles song "Life in the Fast Lane." I wanted to go, I wanted to experience, I wanted everything, I wanted it now, and I wanted, and it ended up creating multiple addictions in multiple ways, even in the mental and emotional realms of wanting to believe that something was what it wasn't. Now, that doesn't mean it can't be manifested into that, because there is an unlimited potential. However, we humans have free will based on our identities and where we put our focused attention. So when we're focusing on how life isn't fair, when we're focusing on how we don't have power, when we're focusing that we don't have control, when we're focusing on it's not enough, when we're focused on we're not receiving the love that we desire or we feel worthy of, those are stemming from an inaccurate observation of the whole truth. That is the limited perspective of our ego. And how we choose to communicate before we behave helps us align the vision before it becomes a tangible reality. So goals are important. Intentions are important. You can tell yourself all the things all the time, and the thing about the mind is it's just like working a muscle. So yeah, you can tell yourself all day long that you're happy and you're this and that, you're and then maybe you're able to match that frequency more and more and more and more, because that becomes a practice. But that's conditioning yourself. And the question is that has come to me through my experience when I was conditioning myself to always think positively, to always feel positive, to always just be able to move forward. That allowed me to make mistakes and that I wasn't conscious of, because I was so busy trying to move forward, to let it go, to just move on, to let it, that the unconscious stuff accumulated till it became overwhelming. And then I was knocked out of balance in a way that usually was very destructive to myself and other people, and my organizations and my businesses and my identities and all that kind of stuff, which I'm grateful for at this point, because it taught me how resilient I am, and how it I'm here to live life, and that's the full spectrum of it, because I can't truly know what love is unless I truly know what love isn't, because that's the duality of energy. That's the polarity. That's the container of the masculine. Why the energy is going on the inside, is going on in the inside, which is chaos, right? The thoughts and feelings, this and people's reactions, and oh my God, it's like a storm on all realms of all the dimensions of thought, feeling, and actual physical senses. Hey, Mark, how you doing? And Rhonda, yeah, we practice to become, therefore it becomes our second nature. But if it's our second nature, what's our true nature? And that's what I'm questioning of the unconscious stuff. If we're afraid of the frequencies, of the depths, Carl Jung said, you'll never reach the heavens if I mean, there's so many different quotes and sayings that talk about it. The deeper the roots, the higher the growth of the tree. I mean, we see it in nature. If the roots aren't properly deep enough and wide enough, if it gets too tall, it would tip over. And so that's part of that's part of the experiences. Actually, that's a good. Let's talk about this for a second. The conditioning seems to be our first nature as we are taught. The question is who is the teacher? So if we're always being taught by humans through human interaction or interpretation of spirit, and we're not learning through our connection of things, are we being misled? Because it's been my experience that where we get misled is we say one thing and we do another thing. Whether it's intentional or not, I mean, that depends on the person and the circumstance and all those different things. But to walk in, the easiest way to walk in absolute truth is never to say anything. But then it would be really hard to connect on a mental level, which is that second realm that we were talking about, spirit, mind. If we're not communicating, if we're not expressing ourselves through our words and through our thoughts and through our feelings and through our behaviors, then we're not using our whole self. We're still dividing ourselves. And when we're in our body, which means we're observing our thoughts, we're not attaching our thoughts, we're not journaling, we're not conditioning the mind, we're not doing affirmations, we're not doing anything like that. We're just tapping into our body to feel if there's any tightness, any stiffness, any pain, any of those things. And then through different practices, depending on what it is, you move and cultivate that energy. And what's going on, as a trained in massage, someone that's hurting from a car accident that happened the day before, that's a normal process. And I typically wouldn't work with somebody for like a week, at least a week afterwards, because I would want that body stiffness and soreness to naturally dissipate, to naturally work itself down. So I'm not working on agitated muscles already, which is going to tend to make it a little worse before it makes it better. So, part of our wisdom is to know when it's time to do something, or when it's to cultivate and when it's not to cultivate, and when to apply energy, when not to apply energy. And that a lot of times in our relationships feels like a pull push dynamic. But that's the magnetism of our relationships. And the more we work through that push-pull process, the more we can work within the harmony, within the unity of things. And everybody can be in that frequency. And everybody's contributing a part of their energy. The challenge that I think we're going through culturally right now is the Great Awakening, right? The apocalypse, the revealing of these things that we weren't aware of before, whether it be in our culture, or in our history, or in our politics, or in our finances, or any of that other stuff. But ultimately, if we go deep enough and we look at it as an energetic exchange, it all makes sense. It makes sense for us as a society to condition people to be predictable and to try to use their energy in a predictable way. Because if the masses are doing that, then the ones that aren't doing that are able to benefit from it. And it doesn't matter if it's in a spiritual sense, doesn't mean if it matter if it's in a financial sense, or anything else like that. Where there's where we feel a lack in things, there's a benefit. There's a gain. People are starving in areas. You provide them food, they benefit. That's part of the compassion that brings us back, brings humanity back in the oneness, right? It's not that complicated, but it is, because we make it complicated through all the different ways that we can be ourselves in relationship to everybody else and every other thing. But that relationship is either going to provide peace and or allow you to discover that within yourself, because maybe it's not peaceful, maybe it's chaotic, and so then you're going to have to learn how to self-heal, self-soothe. Which is going to make you better at that. Now, if somebody isn't willing to admit their part, isn't willing to acknowledge how, they say one thing, but then they do other things, and, that kind of stuff, it makes it really, really challenging to develop the trust that when things are out of alignment, that we take the time, the presence, the practice to get back into it. That's the consistency. And that's why they say you grow with your relationships. And the ones that fall away, so to say, in the physical world, is because the conditions aren't aligned anymore. We want to live another way. And so it makes it really hard to cohabitate. If somebody's always complaining about their experience of life, and the other person's trying really, really hard to overcome that pessimism. What a great teacher that person has in their life to teach them how um, to work through those things, to overcome those things by being detached to the fact that they are not responsible for how that person thinks, feels, or behaves. Um, but they are responsible for how they're impacted and how we react out of that. That's our responsibility. You know, there was a time in my life where um, there was a physical altercation and I was sucker punched by a guy, and it cut my eyebrow open and I was bleeding. And I took a step back and I said, okay, well, what was that all about? And, like, do you feel better now? Like, well, I don't understand, why you did that. But that inner strength that I had not to be a physical person anymore scared the bejesus out of him and his friends. Now, I was scared in the first place. That's why I didn't want to fight him, because I knew if I fought that guy, that his friend was probably going to jump in, and then it was just going to get worse. So I wasn't going to match that energy. Now, it took me a little while to get over myself and my ego, of not standing up for myself and trying to make the rational decision. At first, I had it within myself, but because I was working for a company, and I had a bunch of business money on me, and I was afraid that it was going to get stolen. And when I was telling the story to the owner, he was like, "I wouldn't have cared that you lost that money. I cared that you didn't stand up for yourself." And that then inspired me, like, oh my God, I didn't, like, and made me feel like I was weak. And now I realize, like, I can look back into my life and all the times that I was bullied or picked on because I'm a small individual. When I didn't back down, but at the same time I didn't move forward, it, for whatever reason, created a greater result, like a higher frequency vibrational. When I got into fights with people, that tended not to ever change anyone's mind. We just got entrenched. And then we created enemies. Man, that seems really familiar too. If we look on a bigger, wider scale, like, oh my God, we're at war with everybody that isn't part of the World Bank. I wonder why that is. I wonder why the system, the Rockefellers, all the roots of this stuff feared nature, was because they wanted to create control over the society that they were creating, that they were developing. Now, we've learned from that, but yet we still practice a lot of that stuff. The fact that the gross domestic product includes healthcare makes you understand that the system is set up to make money. It's an exchange of energy, and it's a way for those who are creative enough to tap into that are able to maintain those things. And it's come through conditioning, and valuing certain things over other things. The challenge being, when you awaken beyond the man-made construct, is you realize that every hour, every moment, every life is invaluable. There's no way that you can put a monetary value on anything. But yet then we're still expected to live this man-made reality. And that can be hard to balance. Because as we give our energy away, as we invest in our friends and our relationships and our partnerships and all that kind of stuff, that is investing in our abundance of experiences, of connection, of all the different things. And that to me was always the challenging thing about religion. Like I don't know if it was because of all my near-death experiences as a child, up until my teenage years, or I mean even after that, I had a few, that made me always aware of the other side, however you want to define it. But it's beyond words. And it's scary when people use we use these words, because I'll include myself, I'm people too. When we use words and unintentionally mislead ourselves or other people. That takes a lot of inner work to release the shame, guilt, fear of those things. And if you want to experience oneness in this physical life, you gotta let all that go. And I hope you choose to do it on an energetic level and not on a physical level like I did. It's harder. It's harder. But the physical one, you'll never come back as this version of yourself again. So you'll leave things incomplete. And that was the awareness that I was that I was given, however you want to, when I would find myself there in those depths of like, this is just too much, man. How much can one person take? And it's always enough. And the more we get back to the true nature of life, beyond the man-made constructs of words and what's right and religion and politics and all that kind of stuff, and value each other as we value ourselves, that's when we'll know peace and harmony in all realms. But why we believe that we're more valuable than some, and we all, to say we all deserve to live as multimillionaires is equity. The destructive thing about that is how would we as individuals and as a collective use that currency of money for our own personal gains and pleasures, and what impact would that have on nature? It's becoming more and more prevalent to me that the reason that there's a financial inequality is because in humanity we're not equal. because we value our interest over other people's interests. We value some lives over another life. And that inequality has to be reflected through universal reciprocity, sacred mutual exchange. So if there's inequality within, there's inequality outside. Because that's what it's reflecting. That's what we're aware of. That's what our higher self is wanting us to see, that within us is inequality. Because when we realize that we are all one, as a humanity, as a planet, as the cosmos, as consciousness, how we intend to live through the frequencies of our thoughts, feelings, and actions will consistently manifest our reality. That's the Holy Trinity. That's I know there's a lot of different teachings and a lot of different perspectives. And I can't even fathom trying to collect all of the things that I've been taught over my lifetime from all the different teachers, from all the different industries, from all the different walks of life, of all the different cultures, of all the different economic statuses, like that I've personally gotten to experience and be a part of. And that's not even and that's even including all the spiritual synchronicities and things that have shown up in my life to make me think and feel and believe that I am where I am and why I'm doing what I'm doing and continuing to be of service to others and myself in the ways that I am. The reason that I'm showing up doing these podcasts, the reason that I decided to create Enhancing Your World and create free online communities is so we can communicate and connect with one another as human beings and saying, how are we going to walk together? How are we going to create the heaven on earth? It's the question, not the answer. And I know there's been a lot of information out there. There's a lot of history. There's a lot of stuff for the mind to get caught up in, to rationalize and to justify and all those different things. But if we can truly be heart-centered human beings in the presence of now, how we think and how we feel are formless. So when we're rooted in our five senses and everything in our environment, our physical environment is safe, we can process those thoughts and feelings. And that's why some people seek isolation, because it's easier to be peaceful when no one's poking at you, when your actions don't affect other people, which they do. You just don't maybe pay attention to it, or you're only paying attention to the compliments you're getting because people like how you're treating them. But if you refuse to listen to how people are telling you that you're mistreating them, are you strong enough to listen to the whole truth? And calling people names and stuff like that, again, like that can be hurtful if we claim that, if it hits a wound that we've carried in our subconscious mind, that will absolutely trigger us. Now the question is, do we sit there and say, okay, why am I being projected to be that? How am I living that way? And we do that within ourselves. That gives us self-awareness. And then if we're brave enough and vulnerable enough and open enough to communicate that with somebody else, and they're strong enough and willing enough and loving enough and to share their perspective. Now both parties have a greater awareness of how to raise their thoughts, feelings, and behaviors to be in a more harmonious, happy relationship. It's just the frequency. And I'm trying not to make it into, states and things like that, because we're meant to travel through the states of emotionality, so we know the difference of the places that we like to be versus the places we don't care to be. It's just like traveling our planet. There'll be some places that we really enjoy traveling to, and there'll be other places that we don't. It doesn't make it any more or less valuable. But it serves its purpose, whether we're aware of it or not. Just like everything in nature. And so that hopefully can give us all a sigh of relief. Because the more I start reflecting on that for myself, the more it helps me understand that all I get to do is participate in the way that I get to participate. Sometimes I get to create those opportunities. That's the creator in me. And sometimes I'm the co-creator by just participating, because it's somebody else's time to create, someone else's time to lead. There's a song by Nako, and the Medicine People, and one of the songs, and I can't think of the song name, but the lyric basically, it says, justice is served in many ways, is essentially what it is saying. I was trying to think of the exact lyrics, and the other part of the chorus is coming in a little louder right this moment. But it's allowing our anger. The song, is allowing our emotions to allow things to work towards the best. It's understanding that if we're in our anger, we feel like there's an injustice somewhere. Okay, let's talk about these injustices. I remember growing up as a kid, and I don't know if you've had that experience with your kids. It's not fair. It's not fair that so-and-so is doing this. It's not fair, da-da-da-da. And our authoritarians say, well, life's not fair. It is fair. Based on our frequencies, based on our consistencies of how we show up for ourselves and other people and our planet and all those different things, that manifests our reality. It blows me away that, people are so disrespectful to our planet, because I don't understand that. I was taught to care about it. There was a time that I could justify littering in a parking lot because somebody was going to pick it up, and that's job security. That was very short-sighted of myself. And it's interesting when I focused on myself and how I felt, how I thought, and, how these external experiences fueled that motivation in me. It makes a lot of sense how eventually they have to become destructive, because that's part of the process of life. We're born into form, and then we are born back into the formless through the passing of our body, our consciousness leaving this physical reality. Right? It's all energy. And the more we can align ourselves with universal laws, with natural laws, the deeper we can see into the man-made stuff and find compassionate ways for ourselves and to live. Because the only example we truly have is our own. That's the only thing we can control. We can observe thoughts and we can control which ones we attach to with our emotions. And that's part of our mastery of self, part of our self-awareness, not the story of self, because story of self always keeps us in the ego. So we've had experiences. We're going to have more experiences. How we attach labels and feelings creates the frequency and consistency of our manifested reality in form. It's taking the formless of spirit, of soul, of the formless, filtering it through our mind and bringing it through our physical behaviors. So when we're truly abundant in our lives and know we're provided for and we're protected, then we have this openness with life that allows us to experience life without being so concerned about it being over, because we know that is inevitable. Some of us are going to take more risks than others. Some of us are going to live through fear. Some of us are going to live through love. That is part of the process right now that we're awakening to create the new life, the new world, the new earth, the whatever, the new reality. But you have to understand, to be equal, to have equity, that means there are no special interests. That doesn't mean that people don't have interests. It's a wider view. And so we're not separating ourselves by our practices or the way we look or the way we dress or, the way we live or any of those types of things. We accept that it's all the same expression, and we choose to consciously and intentionally walk in our highest vibration of our thoughts, feelings, and behaviors. And then the more we focus our energy on the good stuff, like doing the things for us that are loving, eating good, and exercising and all that stuff, the easier it is to let go of the other things that are destructive. The eating of the junk foods and the processed foods, and the sitting still all the time, because it's not good for our bodies to sit for long periods of time. Our body is made, and that's the challenge of it. Our bodies are meant to move. And our mind needs stillness. And that's why the intentional practice of meditation is so beneficial to everybody's life. Whether you're choosing to do that on a mat or on a cushion or, whatever, that's where you're at in your practice right now. It's like going to ceremony. Ceremonies are lovely, but the goal is to carry that sacredness, that feeling of ceremony with you after the ceremony leaves. That's how you honor it. It's how you value it. It's how you allow it to enhance your life. And when it starts to be destructive, it's when we're creating drama and, oh, this person did this or this person did that or da 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 da. Now all of a sudden we're devaluing the sacredness of the experience for every part of it. The things we liked and the things that we didn't like about it. both of them, having gratitude for both of them, brings us into the unity of awareness of a memory of an experience, and then allows us to transcend it through acceptance and compassion and understanding and empathy. Because nobody knows. There's not one human that has ever lived that knows, truly knows. They can point to it through the presence of the moment. But our teachings are always going to be limiting the aspects of our mind through the way we interpret it, and then the way that we integrate it into our daily and momentary lives. So I hope this helps. I really do. I mean, that's the purpose of this, taking this time out. I enjoy, having these conversations. It's challenging when you're really just doing this for the rebroadcast, because this isn't the normal time. So not everybody was able to tune in that normally does. And not having a whole lot of engagement makes it challenging sometimes to carry on a one-sided conversation. So I hope I do that a decent job of that, from speaking from the heart, and not just my mind, so we can connect on a deeper level. Because the mind's always going to see where we're aligned, and we differentiate. That's part of its job, to observe. But that allows us to transcend into unity and find a higher cause for one another. It's not using each other. It's a mutual exchange of energy. That's what creates connection, right? And man, I sure have lived an amazing life, and I hope you get to too. I really do. Full of the ups and downs, and really learning the principle of gratitude has helped me so tremendously to grow through the challenges and the pleasures of life, and allowing me to always put my best foot forward, my best of intentions, to make the best of it. Might not be what I want, might not be very comfortable in the moment, but I'm going to make the best of it, because that is something that I have control over, and I hope you get to too. And so some of the things that have helped me, some of the practices that have helped me, because there's so many, and it's so hard, especially on an intellectual level, because we're like, oh, we did all these things, we did this and we did this, and we coached them, we did this practice, and we did this, and we walked this path, and like, it's so, it's like, I did it, but I'm still not there. And well, yeah, that's kind of the point of having all these different practices and different processes is to keep working on something, right? And once we just sit in our, okay, this is what I want to do. And so for me, what's very helpful is to just sit with my hand on my heart and bring awareness there, and tap into my body and feel the resistance in my body, wherever it is. Is it in my, right now I have a little bit right here. Okay, and there's some teachings that say, that's sadness. Okay, so I'm carrying some sadness. I'm okay with that. There's things to be sad about this world, because I care. People are being hurt and exploited. I don't like that. Makes me sad that there's people that are currently in that frequency. See, that's how I can accept them where they're at. But not be that. You know, my anger towards people that showed me anger only created more anger. So, one of the things that has helped me in my professional career as an enhancer is the fact that people can come at me with anger, and I can come at them with happiness and joy and understanding and compassion. My challenge has been over the last few years learning to do that for myself without being destructive. Because pleasure feels good. Why do you want to move from pleasure? I've never found a reason from that other than to replace it with a greater pleasure. So when all the drugs, all the drink, all the sex, all the money aren't doing it anymore, all the experiences isn't doing it for you anymore, where do you go from there? That's how I got here. That's how I got here. Was realizing that the only thing that creates pain and pleasure in my life is my way of life. The way I think about it, the way I feel about it, and the way I behave about it. And so my goal is to be the best version of me each and every moment of the day. And sometimes I fall from that grace, and that's where I get a new lesson of how to be deeper, understanding, and compassionate for other people, because I got to do it for myself first. And so with that, no worries, Rhonda, about I notice I'm kind of glitchy today. It might be my connection. I don't know what's going on. I just tried to do the best that I could with what it was, and not continue to try to figure it out today because I was getting a late start. But I appreciate everybody that has tuned into the show, continues to tune into the show, whether it's live or the rebroadcast. Thanks for all the comments on YouTube and the subscriptions and the shares and, you know, all that kind of stuff. I mean, I really, really appreciate it, because that's how I can, that's one matrix to understand that it's making a difference and it matters to people, is when it's shared and engaged, and there's comments and questions and things like that. So I appreciate those who take their energy and participate with us in that, because that helps me, helps Larkin, I'm sure, but she's not here, so we can't talk about her. Yeah, we're always learning, right? Like, you know, this is Rhonda said this. Every moment is teaching us about ourselves. Absolutely. Are we learning? That's always the question, right? Like, are we becoming more aware, or are we going back to the habitual stories of the past, of how we were taken advantage of, or we were abused, or we, you know, attract narcissists or manipulators, or, you know, whatever. You know, that's part of the awakening process. So I know, you know, I've carried that for a lot of years, that I felt people betrayed me, and I realized that no one betrayed me. I betrayed myself first. You teach people how to treat you by the way you treat yourself, in many aspects. So treat yourself with love and kindness, respect, honor yourself for the challenges that you've gone through, the things that you faced, the things that you've overcome, because you have worth and you are valuable, and this world is not the same without you. You matter. You're important. Whether you claim it or not, that's the difference. So you're not any more important than anyone else, I would say. Just as I would say I'm not any more important than anyone else. I believe that we're all equal, by how we choose to evolve in the moment. And it's constantly an evolution. No one is more enlightened than another person in this now moment. And if they feel or think that they are, that shares some things with you about their identities and how they are currently relating to the stream of consciousness. So anyway, with that being said, may you have a blessed day. Thank you for being a part of this, contributing the ways that you do. So grateful for you. I look forward to talking with you guys next week. We're going to try this 11 o'clock time slot for a while and see how that works. Let us know what your thoughts are. Again, you can find all the replays on enhancingyourworld.com, the Enhance Your World show on YouTube and on Facebook. So much love and gratitude for everything you are, everything you do, and everything you choose to be, because the world needs you just the way you are. Much love and gratitude. See you next week.